welcome back to the channel. My name is Jared from Jared Boas Photography. So in this video, I don't normally talk about like a lot of gear stuff. That's not really what the channel is like based on. As you can see from pretty much all my videos, I think I have one what's in my camera bag video. But what I wanted to do is kind of talk about my applications for the Canon R5 for landscape photography. There's a few videos out there, and I'm not going to go into like the crazy technical details and specs and all that stuff, but really what my criteria was for using it in the field for landscape photography, and just hit a few bullet points on the different features of it that that's really helped me out in the field in landscape photography. So I started my photography journey, career, whatever you want to call it, back in, I learned on film back in 2003, but I really started taking it seriously in about 2005. So you can do the math on that. I've been doing it for a little while. And I've changed camera brands about 3 times. I shot on Canon, I learned on Canon. And then I went to Nikon for a short period of time, then I went to Sony. And about 2 years ago, I switched back from Sony to Canon. So that's kind of where this video kind of comes in, and kind of going over why I think that the Canon R5 is really helped me out a lot in my landscape photography. So without further ado, we'll hit the different bullet points, and I'll show you some images. This is more like a real world like application video, I guess. So not crazy technical details, none of that stuff, but just how it's kind of helped me out in my landscape photography. So the big thing that, or I guess the first thing that really made me switch back from Sony to Canon was the ergonomics. And I didn't think that it was going to really bother me as much as it did over the couple of years that I used it. So I used a Sony A7R III for, I think it was about 2 years. And the image quality was great. I really had no problems with the camera whatsoever. But when I was carrying the camera, my pinky would always slide under the camera body. And after a while, it just bothered me. I didn't like the way the camera sat in my hands. I used a tripod for most of the time, so I guess it wasn't like the biggest issue in the world. But I started looking back at Canon because I heard the R5 was out, and I really enjoyed Canon's ergonomics back when I was using them, all those years prior. And so I think one of my friends had like a Canon camera, so I just got my hands back on it, and it's so comfortable to use that was really one of the biggest deciding factors. And it's really one of those intangibles. You can line up specs versus Canon, Nikon, Sony, Fuji, all these different camera brands, but if it doesn't feel right to you, then it's not going to really be conducive to like a good creative workflow. So just getting a comfortable camera in my hand, something that just feels right and something that I'm confident with, was it made a big difference for me anyways. So that was like the big not deciding factor, but one of the big deciding factors to switch back to Canon. Now, one of the other, a really big important part of landscape photography is image quality, and it can be a little subjective. Big thing was I like to shoot full frame, and I wanted to make sure that it had a full frame sensor that had reasonable amount of megapixels. Now the difference between 30 to 45 to 60, it can be negligible depending on how big you're printing, and I really don't think it's that big of an issue. The Sony that I was shooting on was about 43, so I didn't really want to lose resolution. So when I was looking at the Canon R5, I noticed it was 45 megapixels, which is nice. I don't print super big, but that's more than enough for me for cropping in, because I do a lot of like small scene nature photography, and cropping is a big part of my workflow. So just having that ability was really important to me. And then just in general, the image quality is just really, really good. I remember back when I was shooting before, I wasn't that excited about Canon's dynamic range. I knew a lot of my shadows got muddied up a lot, So I'd have to bracket more, but with this camera, it really retains a lot of the dynamic range. And I can't remember how many stops, back or forward or whatever it has off the top of my head. I'll, drop a little subtitle here to kind of go into that. But, shooting in high dynamic situations really hasn't been too much of a problem for me. Sometimes you do have to bracket or, focus stack or something, but it really has lent itself well to those situations. And it's a testament to Canon kind of going full bore into the mirrorless market. So that's, another big factor. And the other part of that is the in-body image stabilization, IBIS, I think it's called. I had my 100 to 500 on my R5 right after I got it when I was shooting in Yosemite for winter a few years ago. And some of the photos I got handheld were just tack sharp, and I wouldn't have been able to do that previously. I've tried doing that before, and my photos would end up coming out blurry. User error, maybe it was the equipment too. I don't know, but just the fact that I'm able to do that now has been a real game changer. If I'm going handheld and I don't feel like using my tripod or something, you really have a lot of latitude with how you want to shoot with the in-body image stabilization in the camera, and then the image stabilization on the RF lenses. Really, really solid. Really happy about that transition for me. Now, another reason or bullet point or whatever you want to call it was build quality. And this kind of goes into ergonomics. It kind of falls in the same thing. It just, having something that's comfortable in your hands, but also something you can trust when you're going out shooting in the elements. I mean, as landscape photographers, we're out in snow, dust, every, rain, you name it, every sort of situation we find ourselves in these, we're in the backcountry or national parks or national or state parks or wherever. So something that I know that I can, have out in the rain, and it's not going to be like an issue. I don't like put my gear through like torture testing or anything like that. But what I just want to be confident that it's not going to, fizzle out on me if I'm kind of sticky situation, basically. So I've always been really impressed with Canon's build quality. It just feels solid. It's not like the lightest, camera out there, not the heaviest either. But everything's weather sealed. I know that I've taken this to Death Valley. I've been in the redwoods, just rain falling on it or sand being blown around. It's been solid. I haven't had any issues with like the sensor, and there's a sensor cover on it too, which is really nice. My Sony didn't have that. So when I was changing lenses, the sensor's exposed. With this, if you have it turned off, there's a cover that goes over it, and it helps prevent any sort of, dust or sand or anything getting on the sensor. Granted, I probably should clean the sensor because I haven't done that, but I really haven't, nothing's come up on my like photos. And I usually stop down quite a bit to like, F11, F16. So I haven't seen a lot of it yet, but so that's just one of the other criteria that I wanted to make sure that if I was going to switch back to something that was going to stand up to the elements and inclement weather that I tend to be in from time to time. So Canon feels really solid, just all around great build quality there. So another point is when you're investing in a camera system, you want to make sure that the lens selection they have is going to meet all your needs for the different focal lengths that you're shooting at. You don't want to short yourself in a focal length that you use all the time. I think most camera brands pretty much cover all those bases, but it's just something you want to kind of keep an eye on. Maybe they don't have like a prime lens or something. So with Canon's RF system, they have a lot of great lenses, and they've been building it out over the last few years. So I knew that if there was a focal length that I was using, it was most likely in that lineup. The other nice thing is if you have one of like, I think it's called like the legacy lenses, or anyway, if you're shooting with the old EF system on the DSLRs, they have adapters that you can use for the R5, which is nice. So, if you find like a lens secondhand, or, you have an older lens, you can use it on the newer mirrorless systems with no issue with autofocus or image quality. It's all seamless, which is nice. But in terms of the current mirrorless lens lineup that they have, it's great. They have pretty much all the focal lengths that I use regularly. The one I've used the most is the 100 to 500. Probably my favorite lens I've ever used. Build quality is solid. Incredible image stabilization when I'm shooting handheld. Yeah, just a great lens. I've probably used this the most because I've been shooting a lot more like telephoto, intimate landscapes. And this has been, I think, my favorite lens that I've used ever. I just love it. Super sharp images. Can't say enough great things about it. Let's see. This is a 24 to 105. This is like technically my wide angle, but it also covers like a lot of different focal lengths, which is nice. I use this a lot in the redwoods, and it worked out great. Weather sealed. This is technically like a kit lens, but it's also one of my favorite lenses because it's super light, sharp, and it covers a ton of different focal lengths, which I love. It's been great for me, and something that it's like a staple in my photography workflow. Can't say enough good things about this one either. Then the last one I picked up recently, the RF 70 to 200, just so I can go a little bit lighter when I'm walking around when I want to shoot like telephoto, but I don't want to bring the 100 to 500 because it does get a little heavy after a while, even though I guess it's lighter than previous generations. I haven't used this one yet. I'm very excited about it. It's an f4. All my lenses are f4 except the one 100 to 500 is 5.6 to 7.1, I believe. But so they're all super sharp. This one I understand is very sharp as well. I haven't taken any photos with it yet, so I don't have any images to show you with it. But I understand it's an incredible lens, just like the other ones. It's real light. It's a 7200, and it looks like this is how big it is. It's crazy. So really excited to get that out in the field. So those are just things you want to keep in mind when you're either switching camera systems or investing in a camera system. When it comes to Canon, they have all the boxes checked for lenses, I think. Now, issues, I guess you can maybe call this like the con section, or I don't know. I really haven't run into too much stuff that's really gotten in my way, which is the whole reason I wanted to switch camera systems, is I didn't want my camera to get into my way when I'm creating things. You can say the battery life isn't the best. I think my Sony actually had a little bit better battery life. Now, I don't know the exact like time or amount of shots on each battery, but the Canon R5 seems like I get a little bit less out of it than I did with the Sony A7R3. But that's a small gripe. I just bought an extra battery, and it really hasn't been an issue. I haven't run out of like battery power in the field or anything like that. The other thing is I guess it has some overheating issues with like 4K and 8K, I think. I shoot 4K on my R6, which is what this is being recorded on. And I haven't had any overheating issues with the Canon R5, but it also just depends on what your needs are. So that's just something to consider if you're getting into it for video, that it might I think it definitely freezes up, I think, when you're doing 8K. But that's something that's so far out of my like wheelhouse that it's not even an issue for me. The photography side of things, there hasn't been any issues that I've come across. If something pops up in the future, maybe I'll like do an edit to this video or something, but every pace that I've put it through, it has performed well. I know there's been firmware updates that people have had issues with, like with, I think, like the shutter freezing up and this and that. So those are things you just want to consider. And, I always kind of wait before I upgrade firmware, just to make sure the bugs are kind of worked out. I think the most recent one fixed those issues, but I haven't updated my firmware in a while just because I didn't want to deal with those. And there's lots of people that haven't had those issues. So those are things you just want to look into before you either buy a camera or, invest in a camera system, I guess. So things just to consider when you're doing those things. So as far as final thoughts go, everything I've said up to this point is completely subjective. There are a ton of great camera brands out there, and you just want to make sure that you're hitting all the right criteria for you when you're making the decisions to either invest in a camera system or switch camera systems or whatever it is. I'm not saying that you need to buy this camera. Cameras and gear in general is just supposed to be an extension of your like creative vision, your creative process. The big thing is you just don't want your gear to get in your way, and that's kind of what I'm trying to stress here. For me, switching to the R5 really helped my workflow, and I don't see myself switching off Canon because they have a ton of lenses that I really like, and the R system seems to be just getting better. So for me, that's great. You can pick anything to shoot on. One of my favorite photographers right now, his name's Alberto, and I think he's using a Canon 5D Mark II. That's like a 15 or 20-year-old camera or something. So, you know, it really doesn't matter as long as you're getting the like really good images out of it and you know how to use the camera itself. So that's probably the most important thing. As far as nature and landscape photography go, I can't say enough good things about this camera, as you've seen throughout the video. It really just hits all the marks for me. It has been nothing but solid, reliable, and it has not gotten in my way. So, and the other thing is, I don't do like wildlife photography very much, but I know a lot of wildlife photographers also like it for wildlife applications. You can look into the specs on that, but I've seen a few videos out there on YouTube that people apparently enjoy it for that as well. So this is kind of the end of the video. I hope you liked it. If you wouldn't mind liking the video, really helps me out with the channel and getting these videos out to more people. Dropping a comment, you can leave me a comment about the Canon camera you're using or any thoughts you might have on what I've said or anything like that. And considering subscribing to the channel, because I just like getting these videos out to more people and growing the audience to hopefully make more videos that people enjoy. So thanks for watching. I really appreciate the support. Thanks so much, and we'll see you in the next one.